from the people. It is a sort of social contract where the people have an opportunity to pick their leaders and vote them out if they decide to do so. And unfortunately, when we know that the foundation and the principles of every democracy are free, fair, and credible elections, we have not been able to institutionalize that into our own system. So we have democracy in principle, but not in practice. So what exactly will be my fears for 2027? What caused the glitch in 2023? The entire electoral process of 2023 hung around an amended Electoral Act of 2022, which stated that electronic technology will be the game changer. An electoral umpire received billions of naira to conduct one simple exercise. And on the day to deliver on that exercise, they said there was a glitch. And 2 years after that glitch, both the electoral umpire and the National Assembly and the government that spent that amount of taxpayer money on that exercise are not interested in investigating to know what caused the glitch. Why should we not have further glitches moving forward, and how to build on the integrity of
Good day. Yes, it's another Friday, State of the Nation on the Atlanta Discourse channel. Like I've said before, we're running a 5-part series on electoral reforms in Nigeria. And when you want to do that, we know it's in the overall best interest of the country. In the past, like I've said, our elections were free, but never fair. Right now, they are not free and they are not fair. So what do? We want to know why they are not free and why they're not fair. You know, going into 2027 election, the opposition have shown that they don't have confidence in the election. There's been voter apathy all over Nigeria. In a scenario where you register over 80, 90 million voters and the turnout is less than 20% of that, even 30 in so many instances, does not augur well for the nation with the largest concentration of Black people on the planet. So we need to move forward. We need to know why that is so. We need to know why government will invest 400 billion on technology, for example, and it did not take effect in the last election. We need to know why judiciary is like the one calling the shots on who win the election. We need to know why our police find it hard to maintain peace during election. We need to know why countries like Ghana transition seamlessly, effortlessly, and we have issues with it. We need to know why. We need to know why our institutions are not functioning properly. So we have an array of 5 erudite, people that know about this, people that have spoken about it. So our first guest today is Peter Akah. Everybody call him Randy Peters. Peter, welcome to Atlanta Discourse Channel, State of the Nation.
Thank you very much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure. Well done, sir.
All right. Peter, of course, before I explain that to most of you, is an advocate for humanity. He's an activist. He wants justice. You saw the way he fought for Natasha. They are not related. I'm sure they're not from the same state. For him, anywhere that he sees injustice, is always there. But in fairness to him, I have not seen anybody in recent time, I don't know if he's a lawyer or not, but I've not seen anybody in recent time that has spoken about electoral reform as much as he has. In fact, he was very emphatic on saying that there's no need going into the 2027, that's the 2027 election, without electoral reform. That Nigeria is not prepared at all. So that's why today is our first guest in that 5-part series. So Peter, I mean, you've spoken about this. What are your exact fears about the 2027 election? Over to you.
Thank you very much once again for having me. My fears for 2027 is the fact that Nigeria will continue to live through a lie and a sort of national self-deceit. We are a country that claims to be a democracy. In our fourth republic that began in 1999, we said we have done about 26 or so years of uninterrupted democracy. But democracy, as it is a system of government where power comes from the people. It is a sort of social contract where the people have an opportunity to pick their leaders and vote them out if they decide to do so. And unfortunately, when we know that the foundation and the principles of every democracy are free, fair, and credible elections, we have not been able to institutionalize that into our own system. So we have democracy in principle, but not in practice. So what exactly will be my fears for 2027? What caused the glitch in 2023? The entire electoral process of 2023 hung around an amended Electoral Act of 2022, which stated that electronic technology will be the game changer. An electoral umpire received billions of naira to conduct one simple exercise. And on the day to deliver on that exercise, they said there was a glitch. And 2 years after that glitch, both the electoral umpire and the National Assembly and the government that spent that amount of taxpayer money on that exercise are not interested in investigating to know what caused the glitch. Why should we not have further glitches moving forward, and how to build on the integrity of that process? So if we continue to move in this direction, it then means we are just setting up ourselves for another system where people will come out and then there will be complete voter, disenfranchisement. As you rightly introduced during your opening remarks, according to INEC, 93 million persons or more voted or registered to vote in 2023. 87 million collected PVCs. Less than 27 million came out to vote. Why do Nigerians not believe or trust in those activities we call elections? Why would 50 million people or more take the pains of registering to vote, collecting PVC, but decide to sit out? So the person who is seated as the commander-in-chief of the country today was voted in with less than 9 million votes. Imagine how unpopular a government can be. If you are a government of the minority, how do you take decisions for a majority? So there are a series of issues, including the judicial technicalities, where the electoral umpire will decide what guidelines to follow and will not be held to that standard. And then again, should the judiciary have the powers to decide who becomes the leader for the people, or the mandate should come outrightly from the people? So with all of this put together, we see that, and the desperation of the current ruling class, if nothing is done about the electoral process and the judicial system, we may just be setting up ourselves for more problems going forward.
Okay, so let's look at INEC reforms and implementation. We know there is a law, like you said, the electoral law has amended, and INEC adhere to the regulation. We all heard, what's his name again? Professor
Mahmoud Yakubu.
Mahmoud Yakubu, when he told us, he said it in Chatham House, said it all over the place, that results will be sent via electronic transfer. And I think I even heard them say that the electronic will even supersede the paper. You understand? If there's conflict, but of course that clearly wasn't the case. But my question is, on INEC reforms and implementation, based on what we know, based on what has happened, what are the reforms that we need right now? What needs to be done? What needs to be implemented?
Let me be very clear that good laws are as good as the persons who implement those laws.
Absolutely.
Whenever there are laws, there are even quotes that will tell you that when you want to see how corrupt a country is, look at the number of laws. So law for everything, but there is no enforcement or implementation. The 2022 Electoral Act provided for both manual and electronic transmission because there was a loophole. Section 60, subsection 5 says the presiding officer will transmit the results in the way and manner as prescribed by INEC. Now, the question would have been, did INEC prescribe a way? Yes, it did. Paragraph 38 of the INEC guidelines clearly stated on how the use of electronic transmission or electronic technology would be what would be deployed for, transmitting those election results. But unfortunately, the judiciary decided to say, even though the INEC guidelines is a sub-law of the Electoral Act, that the INEC was open to decide however it wanted to transmit its result. And as long as not transmitting was not an omission to the Electoral Act, it did not matter. So now what we are saying is we have to approach the court, the National Assembly, to plug the loophole so that what is on the Electoral Act or on the INEC guidelines is also made mandatory on the Electoral Act and the relevant section of the Constitution that needs to be amended to support it, so that it is now clearly spelled out that if we are going electronic to transmit results electronically, it has to be mandatory. And where there are glitches, there has to be consequences. You cannot have a glitch and go ahead to announce a winner of an election. If there is a glitch, then there should be an overhaul of the entire process. But even with glitches, then somehow a winner emerged in the middle of the night. So those are the issues, talking about the legal part of it to cover the loopholes, while we also begin to look at the issues of the corruption in the electoral process with the law enforcement officers, the INEC staff, the ad hoc staff, the core members who take part. It is a series of events, and everyone, it will have to be a multifaceted approach, combination or culminating with the legal part of it.
Okay. So to succeed in what you're trying to do, for example, you need legislative support, you need
Yes.
you need people in the Senate, I mean, as of today, technically speaking, the APC more or less has 2/3, maybe one or two short, but they're in control. So, and the way some of us view it is that if you're a major beneficiary of the status quo, you will not want to alterate whatever is happening because you stand to benefit. So how do you intend to get legislative support, for example? I mean, I know you're not the only one saying it. Like I said, it's a 5-part series, but from your point of view, how do you intend to get legislative support going forward?
Let me just be honest with you that the issues on electoral reform and INEC that you see me screaming and talking about is just necessarily to call the attentions of Nigerians to wake up and put focus and put a spotlight on this issue.
Okay.
The honest truth is there is no political will on the part of the ruling class to amend or reform elections to the sense or to the extent that it guarantees free and fair election. In fact, ironically, there is rather a deliberate attempt to undermine the process and ensure that the system is not reformed. And I can give you some examples. Okay. The Senate Committee Chairman on INEC used to be Senator Sharafaddin Abiodun Ali from Oyo South Senatorial District. You know how his election went, even when the governor of the state is PDP, but he won his election somehow. And when they started the discourse about electoral reform, he has been changed and replaced with Senator Simon Bako Lalong, the former governor of Plateau State, who incidentally was the DG of the Tinubu campaign in 2023. So that is the person overseeing the Senate Committee on Electoral Reform and INEC. And then again, for 2 years, any government or any policy-making body that is interested in sanitizing a sector is yet to question or query or even audit the 2023 elections to ask the pertinent question of what exactly caused a glitch to fail. Billions of naira were committed to certain, companies and all of them. I have called out some of those companies. The INEC is aware, the National Assembly is aware, government is aware. And then again, the current president of Nigeria is the only president since 1999 who has never publicly commented about elections or electoral reform. The late President Yar'Adua in 2007 admitted that the elections that brought him and the then Vice President Jonathan were flawed and they were working on improving them. Unfortunately, he passed in 2010, but President Jonathan took it a step further to sign the 2011 Electoral Act. But the current government are the only persons who are not publicly talking about electoral reform. Even when the president continues to talk of how much he was interested in the June 12th mandate, which, by the way, was about free and fair elections more than 30 years ago. So that will tell you the mischief on the part of the politicians. So what we are just doing is to ensure that there has to be maximum civic pressure. The truth of the matter is, until Nigerians wake up and take up the issue of elections to the extent of a crisis, where there is a national consideration on what we need to call elections, it may never come through. And that is why you can see even the opposition politicians talking about coalition. It is because they know that INEC will not do the right thing. So it is up to Nigerians, because no matter how long we complain, the people who destroy the country have a way of rigging themselves back, and we have 4 more years of lamentation. So to be honest with you, we are not looking at saying that the current National Assembly will just come out and do free and fair. It is like asking for their personal resignation letters. It is Nigerians that must wake up and make that demand. That is the truth about the matter.
Oh, wow. Okay, so let's talk about public awareness since you mentioned it. Do you think that there's been an abdication of the office of the citizen because people are forlorn? Some would say poverty has been weaponized. People are not particularly concerned. I've heard people say, look, 10% of what has happened in Nigeria has led to revolution in other climes. Of course, we saw what recently happened in Nepal. But the political class in Nigeria are not bothered. So some of us, including me, have said, oh, I think, in my opinion, I've said it on this program, I think we're inherently dishonest. It might not be fair to generalize, but I think there's semblance of inherent dishonesty in the land because everybody is doing turn by turn Nigeria Limited. Don't let us vote now. When is my turn? I'll do my one. Another. So, do you think the office of citizen has been abdicated by Nigerians generally?
To a great extent, yes. And I concur with a lot of what you have said. Because Nigerians, we pride ourselves in being, intelligent, ingenious, and all of that. But inherently, there is this level of also self-denial. So President Buhari was there for 8 years, and no matter how bad his, government was, a certain section of the country, probably where he's from, were ready to tolerate it. But another president comes from another region, and even doing less than what the former one would have done, you are not ready to tolerate because he's probably not from that part of the country. But in the long run, what has been the result of all our collective actions, a country that is the world's headquarters of multidimensional and extreme poverty. Few days ago, just 2 days ago, there was a peace deal with bandits in Katsina State. According to the government, they are doing a peace deal so that the bandits will not continue to carry out this kidnapping and killings. By the next day, there was a kidnapping in Zamfara. And guess what? The president was on vacation. He just came back yesterday. So the question is, Nigerians, where do we move from this, ingenious, enterprising people to become persons that are self-aware and interested in our humanity as a people and become a courageous people who can stand up and say, we deserve to put some value on the life of a Nigerian? I mean, within the first 2 days the president was on vacation, more than 100 persons were killed in the country, including law enforcement officers and Nigerian military officers. And it is not a national crisis because we have become almost, acclimatized to this kind of failure in government. This kind of dysfunctionality has become a norm. And if you ask certain Nigerians, they will tell you, there is a benefit of hindsight. There was an EndSARS protest. People were killed, that and that. But the question is, whether or not you decide to continue to agitate, people are dying. And if EndSARS is a problem or dampens your spirit, it does not cover you or insulate you from still being a victim of Nigeria. So everybody will need to come out and reactivate ourselves and demand good governance. Because I think Nigerian politicians are the luckiest people in the world because they get away with anything and there are no consequences for them. We must decide to become a people who are ready to hold leaders accountable in our collective best interest.
Wow. So do you think the problem is failure of leadership or it's more of the followership or both?
It is a combination of the two. And then again, it will be fixed by leadership. But leadership will be a reflection of what the followers permit. And it is a reflection of ourselves. So if we continue to, allow bad leadership, it then means we have failed also in our office of the citizen, as you rightly stated, because the people will decide to come together and get leadership that is reflective of all of us. I think that Nigerians will need to become more self-aware. And we are getting to that point where, as a country, there is more agitation about the quality of life and leadership that we have in the country. And we should not discountenance the fact that anything can, disrupt or trigger a mass movement, revolt against the institutions or government, because there is a lot of anxiety. There is a lot of despair and despondency across the country. If the level of hunger and hopelessness is palpable. So I think even though with all of the issues, we have our ethnic and religious differences that sometimes prevent Nigerians to come together to agree. But hunger and poverty and insecurity is becoming the denominator and the leveling factor now. So moving forward, it is becoming an issue of when and not if.
Okay, so the government of the day, that's the APC government. I think the former vice president of Nigeria, Atiku, said there was hunger in the land. He issued a statement recently saying that there's hunger, that people are not careful, there could be a revolution. But in Nigeria, but the APC now responded that Atiku was living in the past, that they have stabilized the economy, that the economy is stable, that they are making progress. And I think it was former Speaker Dogara who said recently that yes, Buhari left a terrible economy, borrowing trillions and trillions of naira, but the Tinubu government has stabilized it and there's growth. So my question to you is that are the APC government, are they right to say that there's stability and they are making growth based on your estimation? You're close to the people, you're close to the ground. What do you think?
I think if you take a simple survey of the people on the street, because politicians will make political statements based on whatever side of the divide that they stand. Absolutely. The question is, are the lives of Nigerians better off 2 years going to 3 years of the Tinubu Renewed Hope agenda? President Tinubu was one of the persons who vehemently fought the Jonathan government against removal of fuel subsidy, but somehow his government took out subsidy. Sir, the question we are to ask today is, 2 years going to 3 years after the removal of subsidy, does anyone know exactly how much was saved from removal of subsidy? Where was this money reinvested? When you ask the president, they will say we have increased revenue to the state governors. Was that your promise to the Nigerian people, that I will remove subsidy and increase pocket money to state governors and hold them not accountable? Because more money in the hands of politicians without accountability is definitely just decentralizing corruption. So what we have today, and then if you have saved money from subsidy, how come you have increased the national debt to almost 180 trillion in less than 3 years of your government? Where is food inflation today? Where is insecurity and where is corruption? The indices that support life, the cost of living in Nigeria today is something that when 70,000 naira, which is the minimum wage you approve, can almost not purchase a bag of rice, then your guess is as good as mine on where your policies are taking effect. So the question is, you are doing so much, you are sharing so much money, you are wasting money on frivolities, on presidential yachts, presidential jets, renovating an ICC for 39 billion, coastal highway. Nigerians are seeing this kind of luxury and wastages in government that is not reflected in our daily lives. The cost of electricity, the cost of transportation, how many persons have access to medical insurance, including malaria in Nigeria has become almost a luxury, treating malaria has been almost outsourced just to the wealthy, because how much is an anti-malaria drug? So politicians will make all these statements, but when it comes to meeting the basic needs of the people, Nigerians are far more hopeless and despondent under a renewed hope agenda. And I think the government can decide to say what they want to say, but the results speak for themselves.
Okay, fair enough. I think just to add, I think one of the mistakes is that even if you're giving state triple the amount, is the value of that money. You understand? I mean,
exactly.
If a state receives maybe 1 billion in the past, now getting 3, that 3 billion might be worth maybe less than that 1 billion of some years back. So,
because what is the exchange rate at this point? Well,
yeah,
exactly.
I think that's another way to look at it. So I haven't said that. So let me ask you this: Nigeria is enmeshed in a lot of ethnic related issues, tribal innuendos, religious bigotry, Hausa, Igbo, Yoruba, Igbo, Kanuri versus Fulani. I mean, we are the largest concentration of Black people on the planet. So what role do you think this tribal divide, and in many of the cases, religious division, how is it stopping the growth of Nigeria? Do you think it's a major factor that is hampering our growth as a country?
Let me give you, and this is my personal opinion.
Absolutely, go ahead.
Are we divided across ethnic or religious lines? Yes, we have our ethnic and religious differences. But the truth of the matter is Nigerians are not as divided as the political class claims we are. A lot of the divisions that you see in Nigeria are actual efforts by Nigerian politicians, criminal-minded politicians, to divide Nigerians against each other. Because when it comes to, the looting of Nigeria's treasury, the stealing of our commonwealth, there are no divisions amongst them. Today in Nigeria, The Hausa man is suffering as much as the Yoruba man. In fact, there was immediately President Tinubu came in January of 2024, there was a killing that took place in Ekiti where some Kabisis were killed by Fulani militias, according to reports. One of the women who was crying at the palace was saying, he's a good Kabiyesi, that during elections, he was the one saying, Dibo fun APC, you people should vote for APC. But on the coming of that APC Tinubu government, there were some of the first people that died. Until date, the president has not even visited Ekiti State. So the hand of incompetence and failed leadership is touching everybody. In the north, a lot of people said, say Baba for 8 years. When Buhari was leaving, some persons started shouting, Bama so, we no do again, we do not want again. So Nigerians are in a situation where a lot of them, most Nigerians need good leadership. Nigerians want an enabling environment for them to live and thrive. My late father lived and worked almost all his life in the north. We are from the south. He spoke Fulani fluently, and he loved living there because he found them, a lot of them, as honest people. If today you come online, some of the persons who are from the president's tribe will make it feel like, it is an attack against the Yoruba people, but it is not true. President Tinubu, according to INEC, lost his home state of Lagos. I voted in the southwest. A lot of persons, even in the southwest, only want a good government for themselves. So, but you will see politicians continue to stoke these embers of fear, stoke these embers of hatred, but their children marry across boards. The former governor of a southwestern state can marry a Muslim, daughter of a governor from the north, and all of that. Once there is good leadership and there are laws that hold everybody to equal standard, people will abide by the law. We are not more divided than America, who has Spanish America, this Latin America, and all of that. But there are common laws where people know that if you do a bad thing, there are rewards for doing good and consequences for doing bad. Nigeria has built a system of lawlessness and criminality, and that is why today bandits can sit down and make public statements where innocent people are languishing in incarceration centers. So it is not more about our divide or ethnicities. It is a weaponization of it rather than using it as a building block for our prosperity.
Okay, interesting. So, I mean, from my viewpoint here, these problems have always been there. We had democracy from 1999 till date. It seems like we take 3 steps forward, maybe 10 steps backward.
Yeah.
If you go to 1979, whatever APC is doing now was similar to what PDP were doing before.
PDP would do, yes.
And it was similar to what the NPN were also doing at that time before under the same Buhari. So it does seem like it's a vicious
circle.
Yeah, and in the First Republic, before the military came, the country was already a mesh in the wet tier. There was already so much brigandage in the southwest and all that. So before I ask you my question now, let's look at India briefly. India today is the largest democracy in the world, the most populous democracy, call it whatever. Now they're even more populous than China. Now there's never been a coup in India before. They assassinated Indira Gandhi, that will have been a recipe for coup in almost every part of Africa. The son who came to power, Rajiv, was equally assassinated, by the Tamil guerrillas, and no coup. Now, India has its very high level of volatility too, claims and all that. But they vote on Monday, you get all the results on Tuesday and all that. So now my question, why am I going through all this is that, is the problem constitutional or how the country was constituted? Because if you look at India had Bangladesh and Pakistan with them have an issue. Then Pakistan went out, subsequently Bangladesh. I've spoken to scholars too. Every time I make this issue, they'll tell you that it's not just India. If you go to Malay became Malaysia and Singapore. And when Singapore left Malaysia, they had nothing. Today they are a superpower economically and that kind of thing. And some scholars will even say, look at Sudan. Now we have Sudan in the north and South Sudan. So, I mean, you go back to Obafemi Awolowo, so many people say. So, my question is the problem constitutional or how we were put together? But because it's looking like it doesn't matter who is the president of Nigeria, actually. It's looking like no matter who is president, this same problem will still be reoccurring. So foundationally, where did we get it wrong? What went wrong and why are we here? That's my question.
This is quite an elaborate.
Don't worry, take your time. Don't worry, take your time. Yeah.
The truth of the matter is, if we want to scrutinize and know exactly where we got it wrong,
yeah,
there will be many reasons from different points of different schools of thoughts. Maybe the pre-colonial era, was there really a determination to give this person self-determination, or it was just leadership, neo-colonialism, still leading by proxy and with all of that. But I just generally want to believe that we as Nigerians, and because of the kind of leadership we have had progressively, we have just continued to veer towards the wrong direction. And it has rather exposed more of our divisions and our weaknesses than our strengths. I believe that it did not matter how we were brought together. If we had continued on the path of, strong leadership, where even during Nigeria developed under regional governments, where there were competitions among people. But if you look at Nigeria today, and you decide to say, maybe because we were not too good together, let us go. Imagine handing over, let's say the Southeast goes away or the South-South takes itself. Imagine handing over Nigeria to the group of politicians who are currently running the Southeast or the South-South. So it is not because a lot of sometimes those of people from the South will say, oh, they are taking our oil, they are taking our oil. But the truth of the matter is, any exploitation that happened with the active cooperation of the people who are on ground.
Of local content.
Yes, your traditional leaders, your politicians, and all of them. In fact, they created a ministry, NDDC, Ministry of Niger Delta, and gave to you. People who came from that region were the ones who were the ministers. They were the ones who oversaw the looting of the entire ministry. So it is because we have failed to build a system of accountability. That is my personal belief, that it does not matter how much a system is bad, where there are no consequences for any actions, you continue to reward criminality. And that is why we are where we are in Nigeria today. The fact that in Nigeria, anybody can do anything and go away with it as a leader. You can then install a successor, you can continue in that. Even from President Obasanjo, let's take from 1999, we had a little bit of progress. They were not perfect, but there was movement in a certain direction. But it happened that by 2015, President Buhari was one of the persons who was the beneficiary of an election that was seemingly free and fair, talking about the electoral process. But somehow the same Buhari decided to superintend some of the most criminal elections in the history of Nigeria, where we begin to have inconclusivity, judicial calisthenics, and all of that. So if there was a deliberate building on all of these platforms, or these institutions, as against giving us strong men, Nigerians would have still seen a way to forge. Because even the constitution, some people will say, oh, there are constitutions. Is it taking some of the things in the concurrent list and putting in this list that is the problem? And all of that. Even when almost every time we are having constitutional review. But it doesn't seem to assuage the problems or the plights that are going on. So I see it as we came together in a certain way. We can decide to come together and build laws that can govern us, taking into consideration our peculiarities and differences, then giving it a true federation where every federating unit has the capacity to, determine how it is governed and its laws. And then we have, somebody at the center where we all contribute and provide. If we restructure the country in that manner, it may be a little more viable. And then we build strong laws and institutions. Other than that, even when there is secession and the Igbo people, look at the Southeast today. Look at what is going on there. Imagine what if it happens that there is actually, they give you a referendum, they say go. What becomes of it?
Interesting. Let me just put it this way. I mean, we're all disappointed and all that, but the point is, what role is religion playing in all this? I mean, I said ethnic and religious, but I just have to emphasize on religion. What role? Because, for example, I mean, I know what the Catholic Church, for example, has done in so many parts of the world. I remember when Pope John Paul II became Pope, his real name was Karol Wojtyla. Pope Poland was very much under communism at that time. I know the Catholic Church supported the They call it the Solidaros at that time under Lech Walesa. Lech Walesa is still alive. They did some form of revolution demonstration. They supported the unions, what you call NLC in Nigeria and all that. Lo and behold, the people kept on fighting, and Poland, came out of communism and all that. So now, if you go to Latin America, South America, there's almost no country there that doesn't have the hands or semblance of the Catholic Church in how they got their independence. So now, knowing fully well that Nigeria is either a Muslim, Christian, or possibly an ancestral worshiper, all those religions command a very strong followership. But despite all that, there's a lot of, injustice in the land. There's no religion known to man that doesn't preach justice. As a matter of fact, it's just in the cardinal belief that there's a little bit of difference, but there's equity in there's similarity in their core belief. So what role is the judiciary, the religion playing? Because today you mentioned the institution, the judiciary, nobody is proud of it. The security institution, nobody is proud of it. The INEC that we're talking about, nobody is not proud of it. So I mean, it's like there's almost no institution of government that is functional. Now, religion, church, mosque, and all that should be what you call BOT in political. They should be the moral conscience and all that. But
of the society.
Yeah, but you do see, people that you think should be the moral conscience speaking from both sides of the mouth. So, what role is religion playing in the moral decay of Nigeria? And if they are playing a role, why? How did it get to this thing?
I think this is a very important question, and without any, trying to say, a lot of persons feel like it is an attack on religion, an attack on the church when you say certain things.
That's why I give comparison of where it has been done, how it has been done. Yeah,
exactly. And in fact, with this period I have spent in this time of advocacy and all of what, I can categorically tell you that the religious community are a fundamental part of the problem of Nigeria. And religious leaders and traditional leaders, but most especially the religious leaders, are complicit in the destruction of the nation. And that is why, as you rightly said, we should ask ourselves the question, we may be a very religious people, but are we truly God-fearing? Every Nigerian politician worships in a mosque or in a church. Every Nigerian politician, even those who are maybe traditionally Ifa worshippers or Ogun or somebody, nobody comes out to publicly admit to it. They all have a church or a mosque if you are a Muslim. So if everybody has a place of worship where they go, the question is, who is stealing money in government? Who is engaging in corruption and criminality? If everybody who worships in a religious center in Nigeria does the right thing, why do we still have so much corruption and destabilization in the society? What exactly is the disconnection between what is talked about inside religious houses and what we have on ground? Why is there no direct link? And then again, if we want to go back to saying what exactly was supposed to be the role of the religious leaders, including the prophets in the holy books, it was speaking truth to power. When prophets will go and talk to kings like Ahab and all of that, because that is what God used them to do. But today, the religion has almost made it seem like people are being made to believe that every problem is spiritual. So Nigerians have decided to abdicate the responsibility of nation building to God. When you hear a general overseer will come out and make a statement that you can pray for the dollar to the naira to gain strength. You can pray to end insecurity. You can pray to end inflation and all of that, without necessarily letting people know that 70 to 80% of what you spend time praying for in religious houses are issues that should be fixed by competent and efficient leadership.
Absolutely.
So because you now ask yourself the question, what prayer is building Dubai, where a lot of our religious leaders go for vacations? What prayer is building China? What prayer is building Russia? And all of that and all of that. But you hear a religious leader will come and make a statement to you and say, you are led with a pillar of cloud in the day and a pillar of fire at night. Meanwhile, the same religious leader is protected by about 4 mopos and a bulletproof SUV. So he is doing 2-factor authentication. If the pillar of cloud does not work, the bulletproof vehicle will work. Instead of telling people the truth. Why? Because they are in bed with the so-called political actors, the people you are supposed to speak truth to. So in Nigeria today, we have a situation where corruption is relative. If you begin to benefit from the criminality and corruption, it becomes grace, it becomes testimony. So we want to have a church project, we want to build a mosque, we need a project. A person comes from government and doles out 100 or 200 million. Nobody asks where is the money coming from. You are part of the criminality and corruption. And that is why till today, no matter how much you see religious leaders, by the time you begin to get close to elections, you do not hear anything. Nobody wants to take part in the civic education to see that, oh, some do, to be in fairness to some of them, but most of the most prominent and influential ones will rather stay on the sidelines. And then when a government comes and is not doing well, you begin to tell the people, pray for them. Pray for the government. So that is where the role of the religious community should be. Because even Christ came that people who are poor and the downtrodden should be given a voice and a place in the society. So if religion is not able to teach people to know that we must come together and fix systems to work on our behalf and to work in our best interest, then I think that we have lost the crux of the matter as a people.
Do you think some of the religious leaders are a beneficiary of the moral decay in the country?
Of course. Absolutely. Without any... look, we do not even... Without going into any practical examples, you can look at the entire... The biggest auditoriums in Nigeria, or the biggest, are religious houses. And in any case, they are always friends. Every politician has a spiritual leader, has a mentor, people who pray for them, people who talk to them. And it is not bad to associate with people. But then again, the question is, what do we say? And what are the integrity or the convictions that we convey in these relationships when it comes to knowing the truth and being unable to speak it? So when you see a lot of people go to law firms today, some of the highest owners of properties and investments are religious leaders. Ask anybody who is a lawyer practicing in Nigeria today. That is why you always see that you always need to move with security personnel. You know, children are moving. And when you ask the question, a lot of religious institutions in Nigeria have subsidiaries. They have schools, they have hospitals. Is it prayers that is building or running those institutions? There is a deliberate, attempt at building efficient leadership, a system to making it work. In fact, one of the leading tertiary institutions in Africa or in Nigeria is owned by a religious organization. So if there is a deliberate attempt in getting good leadership to run your institutions, what makes you believe that it is prayers that will now run the country? If you are not using just prayers to run your own institution, not even the church or a mosque is run by mere prayers, it is by efficient leadership. But because a lot of persons are hand in neck, you see them with politicians tomorrow they are here helping to do this. They also need access to getting waivers and businesses and all of that. So everybody will have to continue to pray and allow God or call on God to come and do what he has empowered and created us to do.
Wow. Do you think Nigeria is a failed state?
We are moving towards that, and we are moving towards that direction in a very fast speed, and it will take an intervention by all Nigerians to decide that we should stop it. Nigeria is a big economy, so you can continue to patch it and make it look like. The truth of the matter is the Nigerian situation is in trouble. We have a lot of resources. Nigerians have no business living in this level of poverty and insecurity. The fact that people can come out openly and sit down as bandits to hold meeting. The person who was one of the persons there is on number 9 on the most wanted list, terror list of the DSS. To sit down, strap himself with arms, wearing a military camouflage. A civilian in Nigeria cannot try it. Is it even possible that that military camouflage he's wearing was probably taken from a slain Nigerian gallant officer of the Nigerian army? It is possible for you to be able to brazenly come out and sit within the community and speak to the people. And by the next day, a group of from that same bandits or banditry unit still goes out to carry out a brazen attack on a community, shows that Nigeria is almost in a state of total collapse. And I think that it is imminent, but it is not, the end of the road. Nigerians can still wake up and salvage whatever that is remaining of this nation.
Based on what you've said now, I mean, it's scary. Yeah, I mean, we don't have to live in denial, but how much time do you think we have as a country, considering that we are spiraling down, 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 and things are getting the lawlessness, the failure of institution. I mean, not having a free and fair election in 2027 will be it will be a major catastrophe. And I was very saddened to watch the ANPP, one of the ANPP leader, Buba Galadima, say that.
Galadima.
Yeah, say that if they appoint so person, I mean, it was indirectly implied that the person will rig the election in favor of the government of the day, that Nigeria might be plunged into some sort of war, that kind of thing. I was really saddened. You know, I cannot say he was lying or saying the truth or whatever, but I don't think those are the kind of things we should hear. But we do know we have issues. So how much time do you think we do have? Do we have till 2027 or after, post 2027? How much time do you think we have? Because people are watching, you know. I mean, you never know. What you say might touch the leaders, and nobody wants whatever the backlash will be like. And anyway, you know,
let me be honest with you, sir. Especially living in Nigeria here and being in this space that I have found myself for the past, months or few years now, it is a frightening situation. Nigeria is in dire straits. It is almost a situation of total lawlessness. It is a situation where justice has been taken, completely eroded and allowed to the highest bidder. In Nigeria today, you are just one court order away from probably spending the rest of your life in prison. Just take you before any magistrate that is standing with a procured court order, and then they remand you and they say adjournment and adjournment. That is what it has become, where even public health institutions are almost just mortuaries. Every Nigerian should be concerned at the direction this country is headed. And politicians should know that the desperation to hold on to power must be tied to the level or the quality of life, and know that there is an extent to which people can receive bad governance. I believe that 2027 presents an opportunity for Nigerians to rally around themselves. A lot of what the ruling party is doing is panic, because they know that once you have a seemingly free and fair elections in 2027, there is no way that this ruling party will come back. The defeat of the party will be announced before 12 o'clock. So they are doing everything to stir up the polity, to make it seem like Nigerians are hopeless. I just want Nigerians to know that we have an opportunity. How many persons are the ones holding Nigeria hostage? Let us calculate how many persons are in the presidency, in the Senate, in the National Assembly. Give and take, let us give it maybe even 20,000 people, as against how many million victims of the dysfunctionality. So Nigerians, we have the capacity to get up and save ourselves. The question is, how long will it take for us to put together the courage that is needed to say enough and do the right thing? And guess what? Nigerian politicians are some of the most, they are watching everything. Since the Nepal issue happened, a lot of them have not rested. They have been trying to put up the scenario that no, there should not be this, there should not be that. We don't even need to allow the country to get to that point. Nigeria should just wake up, exercise our civic pressure and our right to peaceful assembly, and demand that a lot of this thing or bad governance should stop and get accountable leadership. I believe that 2027 presents an opportunity. It is possible, but it's up to all of us.
We have been talking to Peter Akah, popularly known as Randy Peters, activist, a major proponent and advocate of electoral reform. You know, he's been talking to us for about 45 minutes now. But I have one more question for you before you go.
Yes, sir.
Do you believe in zoning? Do you think we need to zone, or we should just be merit-based? We should just throw it open and winner takes all? You know, because I've been involved in discussions with people, scholars and all that. And one of the things we've agreed, even at the editorial level, is that, look, if Nigeria needs, say, 10 brilliant people for a strategic purpose, and those 10 are from Abia, that we should pick those 10 Abians. We don't necessarily have to do quota system zoning and all that. So do you believe in zoning, especially for the president and, the way they rotate governorship across this, that, and that? Should it just be merit-based? Should we just put our best 11 forward, our best foot forward? Or for the interest of tribal equity, religious equity, and fair play, they always call it, that it should go around, possibly because everybody is chop, like they call it, turn by turn Nigeria. But do you
turn by turn?
Turn by turn. Do you believe there should be zoning?
In all fairness, I believe, I wish and I hope that Nigeria's leadership, our democracy, grows to a point where we begin to talk about the merits, the competence and capacity of a leader as against where they are from. I am a person who believes that if you can get the job done, whether you are an Igele man, a Juku man, an Efik man, in the name of God, get it done. And I give you an example, a clear example. Since 1960 till date, out of the about 15 or 16 heads of states and governments we have had in Nigeria, about 10 have come from the northern part of this country. Now, let us zoom into the region. How has this reflected in the welfare of the lives of the persons living in the northern part of Nigeria? When it comes to out-of-school children, illiteracy, the Kano state alone accounts for almost 5 million. Kano, Kaduna, Kebbi put together. When it comes to hunger, when it comes to insecurity, they have had the highest numbers of persons who have led the military and also the country as heads of state and presidents. President Buhari finished 8 years. It has come to the south. Once it is done, it will go back to the north again. So the truth of the matter is, in our 65 years coming now of existence, we have only taken power for the sake of power. So the zoning issue has not even helped anybody. So I believe strongly in strong and efficient leadership. Let the character and competence, and that is what a lot of people need in Nigeria. The people who are shouting on their mandate, they shall fall on their mandate, our local. Look at where our local has carried, even people who were standing on the mandate. A lot of them are tired of standing on the mandate and now sitting. Because if mandate buy fuel for 1,000 naira, there is no light, or kidnapper carry mandate, what will you do? So that is my personal position. I believe in the character competence of a leader, and it should be by merit. Let people choose their leaders regardless of the zone. We must understand our ethnic and religious diversities and all of that, but leadership should be by merit and by competence.
Fantastic. That's the last question, but something else just came to my head, and I'm compelled to ask you. Even when you were talking, you said from 1999 till date, we made progress in some areas. Most people that say that, they talk about the Obasanjo days, that's
Yes.
the time we made a lot of progress. So to a very large extent, President Olusegun Obasanjo is the best, at least civilian president we've had, or probably the best leader overall in Nigeria. It wasn't, I wouldn't say, like they say, it wasn't excellent, it wasn't extraordinary, but it was very good or good, but it was way above the rest. So my question is this: do you think will have been better for Nigeria? Because most people, even those that don't like Obasanjo, they say he's not tribal, that he loves Nigeria, that he's passionate about Nigeria. They say all that. Do you think will have been better if Nigeria had given him that third term or possibly a fourth term and let him do all that he wanted to do for the country, that would be better off now? Or it was good the way it happened back then?
I think it is good. It is important that we understand what we call our laws.
Sorry to interject you, just to interject you again. Yeah, why I ask is that most of the countries that have done well thus far, especially when you go to Asia, you understand?
Yeah.
Malaysia, they had Mahathir Mohamad for a very long time. Indonesia,
long time.
I know, yeah. Even in Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew was there for a very long time. You understand? Barack, so many years. You know, General Sisi too is only God knows when he's going to live. We have the case of Rwanda. Nobody, coming Kagame, has nobody can say he has not done well. You understand that kind of thing? So there's this groundswell that, okay, for stability purposes, don't you think you also need a benevolent dictator, and you need a detribalized leader? Obasanjo should have been deep. I'm not holding break for you. I'm just asking. This just something you discuss at editorial level, and I've discussed with some intellect. So that's the background to which that question is coming, so that to guide your response.
I think that we would also need to be careful in sometimes, having sympathy for a benevolent dictator, not to hand over the entire freedoms and rights of the people into one person, because we have a tendency to allowing human beings making themselves the constituted authority. We see what is going on in Cameroon, see what is going on in Uganda, even Rwanda. I believe that it is important. I believe in democracy as a system of government if its principles are put into practice, where there are freedoms and where people are able to speak their minds and hold their, leaders accountable. What is just missing in Nigeria is we have not been able to build that system of accountability through free and fair elections. With all the good that President Obasanjo did, some of the elections under him were some of the most horrible. We had the Professor Morrissey, INEC, and all of that. And then he brought President Yaradua. President Obasanjo was part of the reason why President Jonathan was taken out. He kept writing letters and all of that. And, he also supported and blessed the APC. If we are able to build institutions to work, for example, people do not have faith in Buhari as a president in 2019, and Nigerians vote for a leader where the system puts pressure on you, you will perform. 4 years, 8 years is enough to put a country on a direction. Look at President Trump, who is probably arguably the most powerful person in the world. He came in January 20th. He's in a hurry to deliver on his promises. He wants to go get along with the ICE race, with immigration, with Ukraine. He wants to resolve the issue in Gaza. He even said he can end the war with Russia in 1 day or whatever. Because it is a system where power comes from the people to an extent. American system does not even give them 4 years. By 2026, there should be a midterm election. The House or the Senate can flip, and it puts the White House in a difficult position, where leaders necessarily believe that there are consequences to not delivering on their mandates. In Nigeria, it is Uhuru. No matter who you are or how you rule or govern badly, you have an electoral process you can weaponize. You can rig yourself back. So I believe that if we had taken step the Yaradua way, the Jonathan way, to strengthen our institutions, it in itself instills discipline and the desire to deliver, so that we begin to take it one step at a time, rather than consolidating or handing over the destiny of the country to one person with the belief that he has capacity to deliver, and at the end, handing over our collective rights and liberties to that person to decide what our destinies would look like, because it has a way it will go, and it will just go south and become detrimental for everybody.
Wow. Thank you so much, Peter Akah. You've spoken very well. You've spoken like a patriot. I mean, I'm sure we've all learned one thing or the other from you. The Office of the Citizen Act to be properly activated, like you said, the awareness should improve. People should not just leave it and just be hungry. The destiny is in your own hand. The people are more than their leaders. I think the solution is for people to vote more, people to come out more. I think that's solves the problem, because in the old days, they say you rig where you are strong or popular. But right now, whether you are popular or not, things like that. So I think the solution is people should just come out, defend their votes, and there's very little anybody else can do.
Anybody can do when there is a mass.
There's just that awareness. So Peter, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. I'm sure we'll always bring you back. Like I said, this is the first part in a 5-part series. We're talking about electoral reform. The onus is on the people. That's the conclusion. So time out, people. See you next week. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you. I'm grateful, sir. Bye for now.